There we go.
Ta-da. All right. So we're here to talk about Koha system administration reports and whatever. And I see Mike says he might have a template toolkit question. So I don't know, let's dive in there. We might have a template toolkit answer.
Yep, still testing one thing, and then I'll see if I still
Oh,
have the question.
okay, cool. Um, Otherwise, what's going on? Anybody got cool things they're doing in systems administration area? Fun reports you're working on? Bugs that are driving you crazy? What?
We were doing some like end of the year kind of statistics reports for different things,
Mm-hmm.
like popular titles for the year and that sort of thing.
Sure.
So I went on a sort of a deep dive of how do you separate like fiction from nonfiction, for example, and then audience, like adult, young adult. So in our system, the audience is pretty easy by the shelving location. And then for like what's fiction and what's not fiction, um, we came up with using some parts from the mark from the biblio metadata, and like pulling
Sure.
out the if the subject's heading, I forget now. There's a double o eight field that can indicate something about fiction or nonfiction, but then there's some other checks that have to be done checking the subject headings. And I learned a lot. I didn't know it was so complex.
Yeah, the intersection of cataloging and reporting is always fraught for me because yeah, there's so much data shoved into the mark specifications. But yeah, that's fun that you found that stuff. How are your reports running at a reasonable speed? Extracting values out of the mark metadata always gets
Yeah,
slow.
it's a little slow, but I think they finish in like 10 or 15 seconds or something. It's not like
Oh, that's not bad.
terrible. Yeah.
Did you run into any big surprises in your data?
Um, yeah. One thing that's a little bit strange is um, the the question of whether or not to count auto renewals for this kind of report. So I don't understand why, but for some libraries, if you include auto renewals or exclude them, the results are really different. But in other libraries, the results are kind of the similar, if like slightly different, but pretty similar. And I don't have a good understanding of why that might be, but um, so originally we were counting all checkouts and auto renewals, and then another library said, well, for these kind of popular title reports, we want to exclude auto renewals because those things can't get they you can't get auto renewals if there's holds on those items usually.
Sure.
So we changed the report to exclude auto renewals, but another library was like, hey, my results are all messed up now. So then we added a drop down so you can choose whether or not to do it.
That's always an interesting statistical question, whether or not auto renewals should be counted as checkouts. I know the State Library of Iowa for their annual reports does not count auto renewals, and we just had a big conversation with them at our annual conference in the fall. We would love for them to do so because then we could start using auto renewals and not be like throwing circ numbers in the trash.
I guess the question is, are checkouts technically, the number of bodies that are actually looking at the item, or is it going beyond the basic checkout period?
Yeah. Well, and so like for our annual report, they count renewals, like manual renewals. So that does they've said they feel like that's equivalent to a checkout, which is already like an interesting debate to have. But then I do understand the standpoint of if you move it into an automatic renewal, that's really no demonstrated intent from the patron. So it does feel a little bit like nobody said they extra wanted this book. They just sort of kept it longer. So should that be a hash mark of use? I could go
So
either way.
checkout is defined by intent of use.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Maybe for some things, if we're counting checkouts to see, do people want to use the library? Do people want to use this book? If in that sense, we assume a checkout means desirability, but does a renewal mean continued or sustained desirability, or does it mean I just haven't gotten to it?
Let me ask you this then. Does Koha give the patron the option to opt in or opt out of automatic renewals?
Yes, it does.
So if it does give the patron the intent to opt in to automatic renewals, then that's intent right there.
Yeah, but what if my circ rules default everything to auto renewal? And
well, then you're taking you're changing that intent. So yeah, I mean, if you're given the patron the option and they haven't touched it, I mean, you know, as long as the option is there and they have opted not to turn it off, then they're making a choice.
Rebecca, I laughed at your response because you sounded just weary about the entire idea of auto renewals and patron input, and I get it.
I think we paid for that feature when we came on board. And
that sounds right.
I think that was one of our key elements was we had auto renewals. We had to have auto renewals, but we had to have a way them opt out. And I think out of 83,000 active patrons, we probably have about 150 people who opt out of auto renewal. So, you know, it's there, it's in their account function. They can flip the switch one way or the other. But yeah, we auto renew everything for everyone. So Brendan, I was going to say for your report, we split it. I don't know what kind of shelving locations or item types you have, but we split for like new books versus the regular collection. So like kids collection, you might want to include your auto renewals and then have your adult like general nonfiction, you know, but then your new nonfiction, you don't include the auto renewals because like you said, the holds aren't going to keep them, or the holds will keep them from being able to renew again. So we kind of do a top 10 list, you know, just to see what's circulating every month or what the high holds are, you know, what everybody wants to read, which is always fun to see because it's usually right now it's been like the same book for 3 months. So it's fun.
And when you do the top 10, is it based on holds or is it based on checkouts?
We do both. So we split it in both. So I basically duplicated the report once to look at checkouts and once to look at, and I think I include renewals in both, or not the holds one, but the checkout one, I think it has renewals as well. But then we also have a top 10 for high holds. Like we run it for the year or we run it for the month, you know, because everybody wants to read what everybody else is reading. So, and then we have a lot of, we use Aspen as our discovery layer. So we have a lot of like, hey, if you're waiting for this super popular book, check out this list of RLIKEs or other books you might not know about while you're waiting. It's called while you're waiting. So it's a great set of lists. So
cool. I guess another thing that comes up in our system is we have like a lot of item types, and our item types are kind of used to determine the lending period sometimes. So like we have like book, and then we have book express, book rental. So like that's been a little bit of a predicament, I guess, if you want to use the item type in the Koha report as a dropdown. It's not very simple because you can't do like a multi-select. So you have to like hard code it into the report, I guess, if you want like all those different kinds of books that are different item types, but they're all books, right? How do you guys do those kind of situations? Or can you get something out of the bib record for that to know that it's like a certain kind of material?
You could do the bibliographic record if you're putting the item type in the, like, what is it, the 942E or the 942C.
See, yeah.
But what my solution has been, and I've been working towards this for several years now because it's a lot of work, I'm trying to get to a situation where the codes in the the item types, there's the code and there's the description. I'm trying to get to a situation where the item type code for all of my print items starts with a P, and all of the non-print items start with an N, and then all of the book items start, it's P underscore B for book, P or N underscore V for video. So that way I can I can create an authorized values table that just mimics the item type codes, and then have one in there that's like P wildcard is all print materials, and N wildcard is all non print materials, and P underscore B wildcard is all book materials, P underscore M is all magazines, and so on and so on. I've been working towards that because naturally when I started, it was like book was the code for book, and new book was the code for a new book, and then a book that could only be placed on hold by the patrons at the library that owned it was called local hold. And so but by making the code something that where all of the books items have the same phrase in them and it's unique to just those book items, that's a way to that's a workaround for creating those reports.
I like that idea, George.
Yeah, we accomplished that with our collection codes, but I'm impressed you're working toward it with item types. That seems harder somehow.
Item types is a colossal pain in the ass to do it. Because in order to do it with the item types, you have to, if I wanted to change an item, you've got to go in and find out where there are rules in the circulation rules that affect those. And you've got to kind of create the item type and then create all the rules that go with it before you start moving the items to that new item type. You've got to find all the places because item type has a big impact on the circulation of items. So, but I've been working towards it, and this is like the third year, and it's a hard one to do because it affects all the reporting for the year. So at the end of the year, when I want to do the end of the year reporting, I've got to take into account that some of those things in the statistics table are going to have the wrong item type, and so I've got to it creates some issues.
Yeah, similarly, when we changed our collection codes to follow that sort of nice standard, I've had a few reports that have a big gnarly case statement in there to sort of take all the old codes and make them into the new codes.
Yeah, it's a lot of work to do, but it can be done. It's the excellent kind of thing that is a smart thing to think of when you're migrating. If you can think of it before you migrate, that's the time to do it. So I'm also, considering the same kind of thing we have branches in 11 different counties. It would be nice if the branch codes all started with an indicator that said which county they were in. And so that might be my next thing to work on.
Yeah, it's interesting. It kind of treating those codes like a fixed length control field. The first character means this. I'm trying to remember. Someone was talking about they're doing the same thing with their collection codes. Who was that? Where they've got 4 character collection codes, and each space is like an entirely different value.
Yeah.
Mike, is that you at Ocean State?
Yep. We have 5-digit, and the first character is audience. The first digit is audience. So like 1 is adult, 2 is YA, 3 is Jew, 4 is other. So this is kind of the what it's based on. like this whole like spreadsheet of how to build your collection code, which was in our previous system called iCode 1 for statistics. So audience is the first character, the next two is format, book, large print, kit, graphic novel, and then the last two are specific. So like fiction, fantasy, horror, nonfiction, local history, and then there's other ones that are specific to like music or TV series. So, and so we basically had Bywater. Well, we did like a nice SQL export from our system to create the authorized values, and then they just like dumped it into our Koha instance.
That's awesome. If only we had known that like 15 years ago.
We've had this God, I think for probably since like 2010, like this sort of thing, a way to do our statistics, and so we just kind of kept that going forward.
That's really cool. That is one thing you have to consider when you're thinking of new codes for Koha, is that I think the code in item type and the code in collection code is a 10-character limit. So they can only be 10 digits long.
Yeah, and I think that is just a database limitation. That's as much space as they were given.
Yeah, it's totally a MySQL limitation, because that was what that field was created with, that limit. So, which back when they created it, that was probably all they thought they needed. So
it's funny, with our previous, we were on Sierra, and the iCode was an integer, so there was a limitation there. So we could not, it says on here, it still says cannot combine juvenile audience with formats greater than code 27. Like, so the next two, so characters 2 and 3, you couldn't have a juve, which is 3, and then any more than 27. So our other was, and then on top of that, our other was 0, which got lopped off when you exported. You know, because it's the lead, but since we have it, you know, it's basically like a text string now. We move the other to 4, so even when we export it, it comes out perfectly. We couldn't do that before.
yeah, about 80% of our barcode numbers, somebody in 2008, when they were setting up Koha, they said, let's make all of our barcode numbers start with a 000. And it's a nightmare when you're exporting anything into Excel, because Excel just wants to kill all those leading zeros.
Yep.
I don't recommend it.
1 star.
I'm just looking in our authorized values now. We have one called item type cat for item type category. Is that something that you use to do these kind of reports? Maybe?
You could use that. So item type cat is specifically used for how your item types are shown for searching on the Koha OPAC. If you take 2 item types and put them in a category, on the OPAC, the patron, when limiting their search by item type, gets that category as an option. So like, if your patrons all wanted to search Blu-rays and DVDs interchangeably, you would, but you for some reason needed those to be 2 item types in Koha, you would then make a category that it would be what you show the patrons on the OPAC for, you know, video. But you could, especially if you're using Aspen and not using the Koha OPAC at all, go to town, use those as categories for use in reporting. That makes all the sense. There are similarly parent-child item type relationships that are meant to do a specific circ rule thing that I never quite remember how it works. But
it's
you
just
could
check out limits, I think.
Yeah, and then it like
it only affects like one thing.
Yeah, it's not great. But that might mean its lack of functionality might mean it would be workable for you to sort of exploit for something else.
Can I show Brendan what I do for my reporting?
Yeah.
So as far as I think this would work for what you need. I'm showing my location groups because they're worse. But you could do the same thing with item types. So this is my loc, and it's insane because of the codes I set up, and it sorts and groups things based on these numbers. But
I think
I think you're showing us a different screen, maybe. We
We're
see your
looking at
Slack.
are you seeing my participation agreement screen?
No.
It was Slack.
How many screens do you have?
Black.
Yeah, at least it wasn't anything like highly personal or full of patron
I'm on
information.
3. There we go. Okay. Okay. So these are my locations. So insane authorized values that I picked up myself. But I've created a second authorized value category called loc group, and that's taking bits and pieces of those codes and creating groups with them, and then I can use that drop down in a report to grab multiple locations at once using the RLIKE operator. So you could do the same thing with your item types. You could create an item type category, I think. Item types are a little weirder. But you could make an AV category that's like taking the pieces of the codes or this specific codes of your item types that you want in one group in your report.
I like this
and do it
idea.
that way.
So you just put a pipe separated list as the values for each
Right.
group, and then those descriptions come in the drop down.
Right. So if I run this report, you can see this is my drop down, and it's combining like different subsets of my locations since I have so many. So I can run it for the professional collection, and that's giving me all of these locations because all of those locations have PC in their code. So that's an option if you don't want to like delve
That's
too
a really
deep
good.
into it.
I like that one. And it's probably like clearer to not that the controlled string is a bad idea, but it's like that way it's very clear when you can look at the descriptions and stuff like that.
I want to point at Christopher's bug that he put in chat to allow one to select multiple things out of a dropdown when using a runtime parameter, which would be nice. Like that would be just handy.
Which I just wrote that request based on our conversation here.
Makes sense. And some follow-up, some other thought. Now it's gone.
That the multi-select drop down for that is definitely something that we were like, oh, it wouldn't be great if you could do that.
This would make me have to get a lot more careful in my reports about joining in the authorized value table to show the like description for things instead of just hoping my staff will all eventually learn to read the codes. It hasn't worked well anyway, so it's probably good encouragement.
Yeah, I think, I think if if you had something where you could select like from a drop down, Koha is very aware of that when you're pointing towards those things. I think you could make Koha aware if it's being used in an in statement and then allow for multiple selections in that. I don't think it's too wild of a concept to consider.
That makes sense. Like that doesn't seem like it would be a hard SQL construction or like translation of what comes out of the input to let you like control click in that dropdown or whatever. Does everybody know how to make your dropdown give you an all option? I feel like that's probably a reports thing that gets forgotten. Those features that get written and then disappear into the manual forever.
I know about it, but I
Yeah.
don't know that everybody else does. I'm sure that it's something that we talked about in a video that Christopher and I
Yeah.
did. But yeah, you just put the colon all after the thing, the
Yeah.
parameter. That's the word I'm looking for.
So I wonder if there could be like a colon in, and
Yeah,
then that would tell Koha that this like the difference between a regular select HTML element and a multi-select is just like a property that says multi, I think, multiple or something.
I wonder
So-
if you could do some jQuery somehow when a report is running to change the drop down to multi-select if it can detect a certain condition, and if that would even work if it was changed to a multi-select tool through jQuery.
because I think the way that the all works is you have to put like
Mhm.
and then the branch code. So I think it takes whatever like you selected all and it just replaces it with a percent sign, so it catches all of the branches or whatever.
Yeah, that's exactly what it does.
So it would, instead of like replacing it with a percent sign, it would have to replace it with a comma separated list of those codes in quotes so that it could be used in the in.
Yeah, which is easy enough. Like it seems like it's just taking your input and concatenating it and then sticking it in there. Seems doable. Just in the interest of visualizing. Ta-da! So if you want, if you want to do all, you have to say like instead of equals, and then you just put colon all at the end. I have no idea what my cat is doing next to me. Like, come here. Say hi. Yeah, it's a cat. And if I run that, yeah, so that one gives me the all option if I pick all. This is a dumb report. Yeah, just puts the wildcard in there. Okay, somebody already typing that bug.
I'm on it.
Awesome. Because yeah, that seems like a cool idea.
I'm looking for it, but I can't find it. There's also a bug out there to create runtime parameters like on the fly. Like
I think those all
I
got
wish that you
shared in
could
chat
just
the
like
other day.
write it into the, like whatever those angle bracket things are, you could just be like the field label and then a pipe and then maybe some like whatever syntax it has to be, but then you could just like hard code the values right there.
Yeah,
Instead,
yeah,
like,
there's a bug for that somewhere, and I'm looking for it, and I just can't find it right now.
just because
I
it
think-
seems like for some like little things, it seems overkill to like create an authorized value if it's only going to be used in like one report.
I think it's a bug that George that I had actually requested.
Yeah, Christopher, you and I were just talking about that in either Bywater Partner Slack or Community Slack. Because like you've got one or two versions of that bug, and I've got one or two like ever so slightly different ones.
There it is. I should have just typed what I was calling it, runtime parameters on the fly.
Yeah.
Oh, you wrote it. Sorry, not to steal your thunder.
That's cool.
But yeah, absolutely. It would be nice to be able to do that sort of thing as more of a one-off without all the setup it requires now.
Yeah, I think both would be, both this bug and the other bug that we had just mentioned would be good options for report writing. Yeah, too often we get locked into what it gives you, and you can only do one thing, or you have to think ahead. But you know, when you deal with combinations of things, you can't anticipate every need, and this would give reports a lot of flexibility.
I haven't looked at the code that accomplishes that all option. I wonder how complicated it is. Does anyone else have deep SQL thoughts? Shallow SQL thoughts also accepted.
I have a question going back to the item type categories.
Yeah.
Because I just looked at our authorized values that we have for that, and it's limited. We just have one. So is it commonplace for Koha users to, just for searching purposes, to use that authorized value so the searching is easier for the patrons?
I don't know, honestly. I have seen a number of libraries use it, but not a ton. I think it's kind of situational. Like, we just don't have item types for which that would be helpful in the way our item types are defined.
You're talking about the item type categories and grouping searches?
Correct. Like right now, I just searched in our database like adult DVD, but things came up that were like youth DVD or youth nonfiction. Like it's just not narrowing the search parameters very well. And I find that when I'm sometimes on the floor and patrons are like, "Oh, how do I look this up?" And it seems like you have to keep narrowing it down. Like, okay, click on the left and to which category you want. And I just saw that you guys mentioned that, and I thought, oh, maybe this is an easier way to narrow that down immediately.
So Christie, you mean like you do a search and you, from the get-go, click the checkbox to say limit this only to adult DVD, and then your search results contain other item types as well?
Well, I'm doing even broader. I'm just putting like adult DVD in the search.
Oh, yeah, that sounds right. I mean, just putting in adult DVD as a keyword. Koha's not, yeah, that I would expect that to be a pretty,
yeah, you're going to get all
messy
kinds
search.
of crazy. Yeah, it's a messy search. That's a good way to describe it, because yeah, I mean, if adult DVD is part of the search, then those words, and I mean, if it's a young adult DVD, that's going to get you a result. If it's a DVD, that's going to get you some results. There's that search on its own. But if you limit by item type, when we have the item type limits set up for our searching, and even then, you still, if you do a search for in our system, we use the shelving locations. We have 3 shelving locations: adult, youth, and young adult. And if you do a search for adult and item type DVD, you still end up with juvenile DVDs in there, because you're going to have an item, you're going to have a title where some libraries have the item type as adult DVD, and on the same item, a different library is going to have it as a youth DVD, and so you're going to get results. Even that's not a great search. There's no perfect searching, unless you know the exact title and know how to spell it correctly and the author's name, and then that's a, I mean, unless you know like the ISBN number.
Ideally, it would be nice if you had shelving location groupings, but since Koha doesn't do that, Jason's work around with the authorized values and grouping, putting all your shelving locations in a group would be more ideal for something of that nature, and then using that as an option in a report. unfortunately can't incorporate that into the catalog searching, but, or can you? That would be nice.
I'm just thinking about you can make a page that runs a report. That's, yeah, I want my patrons running a report every time they load up the catalog for a very specific result.
No, but it would be ideal if Koha down the road would give us shelving location groupings, because there are many times that would be handy in a catalog search. You know, people are looking specifically for something in the children's section or the, you know, the adult section or young adults, and you really have to either, you know, filter everything through specific shelving locations, because I really don't know of a better way to isolate those groupings at this point in Koha.
We're using a lot of canned searches on our homepage, and we've also got a drop down for the search box that limits it to the item type you're looking for right off the bat. I don't know if those are interesting kinds of things for what you're talking about, Christie. I can show it if you want.
That'd be great, Barbara. Thank you.
Let me see if I can remember how to share my screen. Do you see a homepage?
Yes.
So at the top, we added the ability to go ahead and search just by, you know, limit your item type and then do your keyword search. That has been helpful sometimes. And then we've got a lot of things down here, like in our DVDs, we went and made canned searches for, you know, all kinds of different things. So if I only want to see the new movies, or I'm looking for historical films, if I just want to see like new early chapter books, or, you know, new mystery or whatever. I don't know if that's the kind of thing you might be looking for.
Yes. So how did you, I mean, I know it's probably complex, but how did you set that up?
Well, that was like in 2016, and I'd have to go back and look. I can dig around and look at some stuff.
Are those SQL reports or are those catalog reports?
Yeah, it's
Or
just
catalog searches, I mean.
running the catalog search basically, and then taking that string and putting it in the drop down thing, and you know how that all comes together. I can't remember.
So you're building a drop down, and each of the options has a specific catalog URL with all those specific parameters in there.
So if I do new movies,
I think if you were to right click on it and inspect it, you should be able to show what's behind it.
yeah. So like this one was new movies, and it's got our location for DVDs, which is adult DVD fiction new. And so that brings up just that 173 that are in the new category at this moment, I guess. But it may be more helpful to our info desk staff than it is for patrons. I know patrons do use it, but I think it's really helpful for the staff to be able to, you know, answer questions quickly and kind of narrow things down sometimes.
Barbara, do you remember up in your search bar, the item type selection drop down there, is that something custom built on your site, or is that a default Koha thing?
It's custom, but I got it from somewhere. I can poke around and see if I can find it. It shouldn't take me too long.
Yeah, well, and all of those things look like they're probably in your OPAC user.js, like
they are. Yeah, they are.
But that item type selection drop down off the main search does seem like it would be a nice option. Just
we had somebody I'm pretty sure we did that because we had something, we came from Innovative, and I think we had something like that there. And so we were trying to, you know, kind of reproduce, mimic something we already had.
The
And it
scoping
was,
rule, scoping menu from Webpack.
yeah,
Yep.
Well, I like that it, I mean, it's not letting you do anything that you couldn't do pretty easily by going to advanced search or by like clicking a facet after, but I do like putting that right up front. I'm sure patrons find that helpful.
that one, yes, I do think that that is used more than the drop downs we've got at the bottom of the page. Although we do have an on order drop down, and people do use that a lot to, you know, go through and place their holds and hope to be first in line.
Thank you for that. So Christopher, is that kind of what you were referring to? Is I think it was you that had mentioned it'd be nice if Koha could limit it to like shelving location.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking more about SQL reports in that discussion, but I mean, man, you know, I would love if what, you know, Barbara has done could be defined as, you know, an option on that search bar, to where you could say limit to and have those choices that you predefine in there. So so it's easy to find, you know. Hers is the bottom of the page. I mean, easily you could put something in a navigation pane, a pane or on the side, or up towards the top if you wanted to, but ideally it would be nice to have, you know, some of those predefined choices up towards the top that set those limits right off the bat that, you know, are what people are looking for. Maybe all those defined groups, and you know, if that was something that was built into Koha in general, rather than us hacking our way through it with those authorized values, you know, that could easily be something that could be incorporated into the catalog searching.
It seems like we have perhaps exhausted that topic.
I did add at the beginning of the chat another bug, 35693, a discussion trying to push the community into another direction with permissions. Particularly, this came up with the pages that we now have access to. One of the things that I'm running into with pages initially is that, you know, giving people the ability to edit pages, it's an all or nothing thing. You know, this tends to be a direction that Koha defaults to. Is all or nothing, even though we've worked pretty hard at incorporating more consortium minded functionality. We still have a lot of limits in permissions. And so I think this is a really worthwhile discussion for people to get involved in, because we do need to be able to define, you know, who can do what and where. I mean, we've never had a good definition of that with overrides, you know, who can override something and who can't. But, you know, with pages, I mean, if I want to let somebody be able to edit, you know, certain pages that need to be updated on a regular basis, I have to give them access to news and HTML customizations. And, you know, I don't necessarily want to give them all of that. And so now I have to write jQuery to, if I have to protect something, if I were to let enough people in to edit certain things, I would have to write some customizations to kind of control where they can and can't get to. I mean, if you wanted to use pages so that libraries could control some content for their own particular library, they have access to everybody's stuff, which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that absolutely is. There's a lot of room for a big permissions overhaul, and probably we're at a point where it needs to like be rebuilt from the ground up, which sounds exciting and terrifying.
The thing is, though, I do think that we do need to push developers in this direction, because as we add more features, and we're always going to be adding more features, that's just more, it just makes the task more daunting each time we add something new. We need to get the foundation going on that. Whether or not it applies to current functions, we need to have a foundation for that, so that new features can be built on that, and then existing features can be carried over as those are improved.
So I saw Katrin's response on your bug, suggesting making this an omnibus bug and like gathering up all the various permissions things and starting a discussion on the developers list. And I think, and probably at the next like dev meeting, the Koha community dev meeting. And I think that's right. I think that's the way this needs to go. It needs to get like firmly on the dev roadmap, so the release managers are thinking about it and planning for it, not unlike how the staff interface overhaul was like a well-planned big project, because I think that's the only way this really happens. And I don't have a great sense of how best to like make sure that train continues moving forward.
I was just looking to see when the next developers IRC meeting is. I know the last one was like at 7 in the morning my time, so.
And they do tend to be. That's both the time and just IRC itself are pretty substantial stumbling blocks.
They've been using Jitsi for the last couple of meetings, I noticed.
Oh, that's nice.
So 5 o'clock in the morning our time, Christopher, that's or 7 o'clock in the morning my time is 5 your time. So if I can manage to make it to the next one, maybe I'll bring this up.
We need an East Coast representative. Maybe somebody in Newfoundland.
Is that meeting the one that's on the 17th, the one that you're talking about?
I'm not sure. I was just looking at the agenda for the last meeting, and it doesn't say when the next developers meeting is. I think the meeting on the 17th might just be a community meeting.
But
I'm not sure.
It says Koha General IRC meeting.
Yeah,
January 17th.
Yeah, that's a different meeting, and that's coming up.
I was gonna try to attend that one, because I've never attended a IRC meeting.
It's different. You just see it's watching the beginning of Star Wars sometimes.
Oh yeah, IRC is Internet Relay Chat. It's an online chat system that's older than dust. And when I started at Bywater, it was the primary thing they used for communication all day long. And I started at the same time Donna did. We walked into like our first day, and everybody just said, "Okay, get on IRC." And we said, "How do you do that?" And they said, "Well, get a client." And we said, "What client?" And they said, "There are 1,000 of them." And they kept saying these things like that, and all made it more helpful. Like, oh, it's totally wide open. You do whatever you want. No, it's a archaic, undocumented hacker nonsense. I spent a long time trying to convince various very tech savvy people that IRC actually was not as accessible as they thought it was. And I'm still apparently scarred.
That's I advocated several times to have somebody come and do this is how to use IRC demo at a koha-US conference, and it never really went as well as I'd hoped. Because it was the same kind of thing. Well, first you get a client, then you do this, then you do that, and they're all, you know, it was all targeted towards the wrong audience.
So I'm glad to hear that they're using Jitsi, which is more sort of Slack equivalent, a slightly more modern interface.
Yes, with a video interface, so you can actually see the people.
All these people that I saw their face once in 2018 in Portland, Oregon, never seen again.
And what's the name of that you're saying, George?
Jitsi, Jitsi. It's a it's like a Zoom open source. It's open source, so I don't know who's running the server that it's running on, but that's one of the reasons that I never thought it was a good option for koha-US, because it would have been something that somebody would have needed to host a server for.
So I have a quick question. This is finally getting back to my toolkit template toolkit thing. Am I able to share? I guess hopefully
should be, yeah.
So what I'm trying to do, I put on our like quick flips, quick flip, like the cost savings thing at the bottom. And I've done it for the issue slip as well. However, I only want to grab the price for things checked out today on the issues slip. And so basically what I've done here is, you know, if checkout, because one date has a timestamp, one date doesn't. So if it's greater than or equal to today, use this, which has the, you know, get the actually item price, and have a different header, checked out today. Otherwise, use this one that doesn't grab any price info and has a different header, previous checkout. But when I apply this, so these were previous checkouts here. It's still just grabbing everything and totaling it. And these were clearly not checked out today. So that's my conundrum.
Well, is that, if checkout date, is that just sort of checking the whole pile and saying one of these? I guess you're in your for each loop though, so and checkout date equals checkout dot issue date. Okay, yeah.
Like, I think I tried doing like not using else, but using explicit, you know, checkout date less than today, and it still was not like. So I'll post in the Slack too, so like this actual HTML file, whatever.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is if you could if you could go into Slack and post the whole notice into there, it'd be easier to. I always hate looking at these things in a meeting, because there's always something I don't see.
Right. Yeah, because basically what my goal is to, you know, actually total the price, and if the value is greater than 0, then show that block. And if it's not equal to, so if it's not equal to 0, show the block, otherwise, you know, hide it. So you don't see, you know, like a whole whole list of things that weren't checked out today. It was like, you saved this today.
I wonder if it has to do with the date formatting, because you've got like is today in your phrase the same sort of date formatting as checkout.issue date? Because you're using koha dates in some places, but not other places.
Well, I got it in a way that, so one date, it's like, it is using like koha date. One has a timestamp, one doesn't, but they're the same like format, like month, day, year.
Okay.
So that's why I have the greater than, equal to.
Oh yeah, okay. So I see you've got today defined up there with hours. Further up in the slip header.
This one here?
Yeah. That's just what that's where my brain would go first, is like, if it's comparing two dates, are the dates actually being compared?
So this is not
one-to-one.
This is not actually looking at this.
That
This is
okay.
This is just that koha today. Like, I think it's like pre-built. It's a pre-built thing.
Okay.
But what I can't do is, like, if I did koha dates here, then it doesn't work at all.
Yeah.
But I have a couple of other, ideas in the back of my head trying to figure this out. But if I don't figure that out, I'm going to post it on in the general Slack.
As you're troubleshooting it, could you make your slip print the issue date for each checkout, just to sort of be able to see them and verify what it's doing with them?
Yep. Yeah, I have that right here.
Oh, yeah, okay. Right, you said that. You showed that. Yeah, so then why is
there's a couple of things other things that I'm in the back of my head I'm playing with, so if that doesn't work, I'll be posting on in Slack.
Oh yeah, so Rebecca asked about the order of the greater than and equals to, and I don't know if Template Toolkit is picky about that.
Yeah, it's listed both ways.
Mike, on that block at the bottom, the condition as to whether it's being shown or not, what is that being based on again? What value?
The total value. So basically the value of the items. Let me share it. Oops, I stopped sharing. So up at the top, I zero it out, and then basically I want, if the checkouts happen today, set the total value, either the item price if it's there, if that's not there, look at replacement price, and then add it to the total value, and it loops through that. Then at the bottom, if the total value is not equal to 0, then I want this block to show.
Okay.
And it's funny because if I had checked that, if I had things overdue, and if everything was overdue and I just checked out something today, it would work perfectly, because this is like completely separate. But I think it has something, I don't know if it has something to do with the looping through the checkout.
So are you saying right now it's showing this block all the time?
You basically, yeah, because I have
and what and does it ever show you that total value as 0?
Let me try another card. Oh, this way. Yeah, so this one's overdue. There's no price being run through that, and it doesn't display. And that's because I only have the price stuff here in the checkouts loop, and I don't have it in the overdue loop.
Okay. But if it's not overdue and it's not checked out today, it is showing still.
Yeah, let me just check it. So I want to check there, and if I checked out something else, actually, so let me check out. Oh, here's a, go back to my card. I checked out that one today. It's actually only going to test, I believe, just the one today. Oh no, it did total everything. Yeah. It works perfectly on the quick issue slip because that's just today's.
Yeah.
Right.
That's my conundrum.
It's a conundrum, all right.
I would put the whole, like I said, I would put the whole text of that notice in the Slack channel, and maybe I'll have time to poke around at it and look at it, because it's hard for me to figure out what's going on just looking on the screen. But speaking of notices, I did over the weekend, I updated a whole bunch of stuff on the notices and slips library in the Koha wiki.
Thanks, George.
So I've been kind of working on that a little bit. I broke it all into sections. And so one of the things I can say to the people here is everything that's been added to the notices and slips libraries by librarians, it relates to circulation. There are no notices and slips in the notices and slips libraries submitted by users that are other than circulation. So if you've got some non-circulation things that you're doing, it wouldn't hurt to go over there and throw them in there, and so that so that it looks like there's more than just circulation going on, I suppose.
I'm trying to think of important non-circulation notices.
Oh, there's like I'm gonna, there's the welcome notice is one that we use. That goes in the members section or the patron section. I don't remember what it's called, but
yeah,
there's a few of them related to patrons, like the registration. If you do the OPAC registration, there's some suggestions ones.
yeah.
There's a lot of different categories. So. Then there's like the acquisition stuff. Yeah, just forget that stuff. Nobody cares about acquisitions or cataloging or anything.
Those purchase suggestion notices are so dumb anyway. Let's just not. Ugh, that's a conversation for another day. How do we make those work good? How do we not send a patron an email the moment we mark something received? Because we take time to process things and the patrons don't like it. Well, folks, we're a bit past time and my laptop battery is going to die. So I think the universe says this meeting is coming to a close. Any
Okay.
any last desperate thoughts? All right. Well,
Just
go for it.
goodbye and everybody have a good day.
Yeah, be wonderful. Keep warm
Stay
if you're
warm.
snowing. Yeah. Bye.
Ciao.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.